Hello and welcome to vlog number 10. In the last episode you'll have seen the incredible print quality straight from the photocentric Precision 1.5 3D printer. In this episode you'll see just how I get the 3D printed masters for the Sherman tank moulded and into production. First of all, I have to remove all the support material from the 3D printed parts. This is something I've been looking forward to for quite a while. It's always exciting to see just how good the print is once it's free from the support structure. So I've broken out the pliers and can now carefully start breaking away the resin. I was very surprised just how brittle this mould grade of resin actually is. Bits of resin were flying all over the workshop. Photocentric make a wide range of resins with different properties for different applications. I'm sure a different grade would be less brittle. I didn't realise when I let the slicer software automatically create the support that there would be quite such a labyrinth to remove. But I'd rather remove more and ensure a good print than have a failure. The underside is not as sharp as the rest of the print, but that's not a problem, as it's easy to clean up. I dare say printing in a different orientation, with clearer support and better cleaning of the uncured resin, and it will be fine. I'll put that down as part of the learning process. Ultimately, the end result is everything I could have hoped for. The detail is super sharp and there are no visible layer lines. After experiencing just how brittle this resin can be, I decided that the finer parts should be translated into metal masters, as I didn't want to take the risk of breaking them in the vulcanizing process. I had to make cold cure moulds for the figures anyway, and making moulds for the other parts would be little extra work for peace of mind. At this stage I'm still learning about this material and it's best to be cautious. To see how I make my two-part cold cure silicone moulds, take a look at vlog number 6. These are the castings from the silicone moulds, and as you can see they'll need a fair bit of TLC, but at least they'll be strong enough for vulcanizing. Now, let's have a look at the cleaned up parts ready for mould making. The 3D prints clean up really easily. This grade of resin is excellent for filing and sanding, but its brittle nature makes it poor to carve by hand. I've modified the parts with milliput. Where my modelling was a little off, or where I felt areas needed to be discreetly beefed up in order to help aid the casting process. I've also sculpted a base for the Sherman. I created this by cutting a sheet of Tufnol down to size and then adding texture and detail with milliput. This is a resin casting from my master. It's amazing just how crisp and sharp the detail has come out. Prior to mould making, I always carry out a final test assembly of all the parts to check everything fits and lines up correctly. Now from the nail biting part, mould making. My production moulds are made by a process called Vulcanization. The masters are sandwiched between two thick discs of rubber and then heated to 150 degrees C and subjected to 1000 psi. This is something the masters really don't like, and they can become distorted or broken in the process. This can result in poor quality castings, but there are things I can do to prevent this. For the first time, I'm going to try and make a modulated mould. It involves pre-shaping the rubber to accept the master in such a way that distortion doesn't happen. I had to remove rubber from one half of the mould and add it to the other, ensuring both sides were still aligned. It was actually a lot easier than I had originally thought, and encourages me to try this method again in the future. My first 2 moulds were vulcanized in the usual way, and came out well with no nasty surprises. The numbers on the moulds are the casting speeds and temperatures. The modulated mould seems to have come out well, and at first glance there appears to be no distortion. Now, let's see how they cast. These are a set of cleaned up castings for the Sherman. The bogie and track unit is perfect. The duckbills on the outside of the tracks took some tricks of the trade to get to cast, but all the details there. The upper hull is terrific with no distortion. That is such a relief. And the detail on the rear grille is really crisp. The turret is another winner. I'm so pleased with the result. The 50 cal and the rear panel are also perfect. The whip aerial is of sprung steel and is inserted into the mould so that the base stem can be cast around it. Now I can start assembling the sample. I use this stage to work out the best assembly sequence for the production of the Sherman. So far things are looking pretty good. Everything fits well. Now let's see it in primer. This always shows up any issues and makes the detail pop. Everything's come out perfectly. The proportions are spot on. I was worried the turret would look too big, but comparing it to photos, it looks just right. I guess it's time to break out the airbrush. I've tried to replicate Cobra King as it was soon after December 26, 1944, when it broke the siege of Bastogne. The model is based on photos of Cobra King and shows winter camouflage on the glasses and part of the turret. It also carries the red air identification panel on the rear. The first in Bastogne graffiti was added soon after Bastogne was secure. I used a combination of washes and dry brushing over the olive drab base coat to bring out the detail and give character to the subject. The base was painted in a similar manner, but picking out other colours in the rubble. I've learned a lot from this project. How to use a new material from an amazing new printer, and new mould making techniques. It's given me confidence to take on projects I'd previously avoided. I already have the next 5 tanks well planned, and I'm sure they will only get better and better. My next tank will be the Panzer IV F2 from the Eastern Front, where it took part in the assault on Stalingrad in 1942. As you can see from these rendered images of the 3D model, I'm already well advanced on this project. The Panzer IV is loaded with detail, which I love, but it does pose a whole new set of challenges for me to overcome. At least 3D printing won't be a problem. Before I tackle the Panzer IV, I have a few aircraft to sculpt. My next release will be the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. The P-38 was one of the most formidable aircraft of the Pacific Theatre in World War II. I'll be releasing 2 variants, the P-38G Miss Virginia of Lieutenant Rex Barber, who shot down Admiral Yamamoto, and the P-38J Marge of Captain Richard Bong, America's highest scoring ace of all time. I hope you enjoyed my vlog and subscribe to my channel so you can catch the next episode when you'll be able to see how I design and 3D print this fork-tailed devil. Thanks for watching.